You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.
One of the great joys of the Dan Nicholl Show in its newly revived podcast form, the form of which I invented, of course, no one had done a podcast before this, is the warm glow of nostalgia that accompanies so many episodes where, yes, I'm meeting someone cool or famous or successful or established, or in the case of today, all four, but also someone who's just a really great friend and someone I've known for many years and someone who I had to get into the show just to be able to catch up with because she's become that busy and important. And it's not surprising, really, because she's translated one of the great South African Olympic careers into now doing something pretty extraordinary in the world of sport beyond on the field. And so with great delight and a huge smile, and let's be honest, a little bit of fangirling, it's a very warm welcome, Kate Woods.
Thank you so much, Dan. So wonderful to be here.
I was trying to remember as I drove my way in today of when the first time we met was. And there were always the rumours of this electric hockey star who was out at Stellenbosch, who was dating the impossibly good-looking water polo player and the first couple of up-and-coming South African sport. But I think it might have actually been out on a hockey field and watching and realising that, yep, the rumours are true. This is somebody who is quite exceptional and somebody who took a love of an interest in hockey and translated it into, what was it, 3 Olympic Games?
It was indeed. It was.
And I wonder now, as we look back a few years later,
Just a few.
if you've had time in between running the Adidas business, which we'll talk about a little later, to sit back and to look back and just actually appreciate the magnitude of what is an incredible hockey career.
I'm so lucky, Dan. Honestly, 10 years of my life dedicated to South African women's hockey. And I carry with me those incredible memories, lessons, highlights into every sphere of my life today. What is amazing is that obviously working in the sports industry, it keeps me close to all sports, but also particularly hockey. And so it's fantastic to stay connected to that world and to talk about all the tournaments of the past and share some of the memories. I'm still playing today, very different level. I'm now with the older woman in the masters category, but it is such a great community to still be a part of. So yes, we absolutely reminisce about the old days.
We share a very similar pedigree, of course. You played 3 Olympics for South Africa. I captained the Mighty Dodos in the Cape Town M5 division to very little success, but many beers.
Very impressive.
But I think hockey is one of those sports where whether you are playing at international level or you're mucking about at the weekend with limited ability, and possibly because, very sadly, hockey has never received the acclaim that it really should have, there is such a similarity, not to the skill certainly, but to the ethos, to the philosophy, to the camaraderie of what is such a wonderful sport.
It is truly special to see. So yeah, still paying for my tours today. And so naturally it's born from such a passion. And as I said, the community is so strong today. And it's wonderful that they're also all about supporting, our national players and the next generations coming through. So it's fantastic to see.
The story around hockey, for as long as I can remember, has had an element of tragedy to it, almost tragicomedy, as the institutions that should have supported in terms of sports administration have never really been there for the game as perhaps they should. And I still shake my head in disbelief when I think back to, Kate's going off to represent South Africa, and to do so, she's got to have a cake sale in her back garden to fund the bus ticket and then get the boat over to Rio. And for a sport where you're representing your country at the Olympics, that you would have to fund yourself, that you had to do all of this to represent your country, the sacrifices, no matter how much you love the sport, were considerable.
Yeah, very true. It's a tough journey for an amateur sport. And it comes with many sacrifices and a huge amount of commitment. But honestly, the talent that exists in our country, that raw talent, is really unstoppable. And it didn't stop us. And so, yes, we had to beg, borrow, steal to get there. Some sponsors came on board and off board along the way. We had sometimes a more professional environment than other years. But overall, it's remains, I think, a very tough journey for hockey players in this country, which is incredibly sad. I mean, if you have a look at the level today, our men's team, winning a medal at the Indoor World Cup and competing incredibly well at the World Cup and the last Olympic Games. I think the women are in a bit of a sort of a reshaping. They're in a bit of a year where some youngsters are coming through, but the talent exists. The talent is there. And if only they could get the support that they so deserve, because I do believe that it's a sport that's growing in our country. It's thriving at school level, and we just need to put the right structures in place to keep it alive and to give it a chance to really succeed at the highest level.
And it's one that, to the flip side of the sadder story, does deliver so much. And at a personal level, take me back to two particular moments, and these might be a little sepia toned. The first time you ran out for South Africa and what that felt like, and then what it was like to go to the Olympics for the first time.
Oh, Dan, it was May 2003.
You were 9.
Of course. It was the first time that I ran out to represent the national women's team. I'd played age group levels, but it's not quite the same. And I'll never forget it. I'd just played a season in the UK, in the Premier League, and I'd returned for a national camp. And the night before the test match, I got called up. So we were there for the camp, the greatest squad, and I was then put in the starting lineup the very next day. It was in the riveting place of Potchefstroom. I phoned home. My mum and my gran hopped in the car the early hours the next morning and drove to be there.
From Cape Town?
From Durban. I'm a Durbanite, born and bred in Durbs.
That's still a fair journey, Durban to Potchefstroom.
It was, hockey. And I had my family in the stands and wearing that jersey and singing that anthem for the first time. I will never forget. I was very much a benchy, coming on to rest legs, and you got to earn your stripes. You got to pick up the balls and the bottles and be okay to play a few minutes here and there. But what a privilege! And I think 181 matches later, I think I felt, those sort of shivers and just that fire in my belly. I think every single time I put the jersey on. So then to your next question, which was around the Olympic Games, I think it is really the pinnacle of any athlete's career. And for me to have been afforded the opportunity to go to 3 is simply incredible. The first was, I think, holds a very special place in my heart because it was the first. And you're walking into that athlete's village for the first time and you want to pinch yourself because you're surrounded by the world's finest athletes, these sporting greats that you've only ever looked up to, your role models. And suddenly you're walking past them in the village, eating in the same dining hall, sleeping in the same village, and competing at the same tournament as them. So it really is surreal. I often say I was like Bambi in the headlights. But it was truly incredible. And then that was 2004. 2008, I think I had quite a different role in the team. I was a co-captain with Marsh, and I think in probably the peak of my career. And so it was really enjoyable for other reasons. And then 2012 was a complete surprise. I had got married and had my first baby in 2010. And a couple of months later, I think Sammy was about 6 months. And I remember being in the gym and looking in the mirror and thinking, goodness me, what a sight. But I had this passion in my eyes, and I had those, the fire in my belly started to ignite, and I just knew that I wasn't quite done and I had more to give. And at that time, the coach phoned me back, Giles, and he said, we want you back. And I said, well, it's going to be quite a tough ask. I was a new mom. I was working, of course, full time at Adidas. And we were a year out from the London 2012 Games. And so it was quite a year that followed, but I worked incredibly hard and earned my way back into the team. And then I was on my way to my third Olympics, third and final. And that was extra special to have Sammy, my son, in the stands. I actually bathed him in the village. We've got amazing memories. And yeah, these memories will stay with me forever.
So technically, Sammy's already been to an Olympic Games. That's a good effort.
I do like to tell him that. I hope it inspires him. But yeah, it's quite funny.
The playing on the field is what we see when we watch the Olympics, and you gave us great joy. What you get to see, and you've mentioned it briefly, is the outside of the village, the experience. What was the first starstruck moment in the Games Village for you?
Oh my goodness. I think I remember in Athens, the tennis players always leave quite a lasting impression in my heart and in my mind. I remember seeing the Williams sisters and just being blown away. Also the basketball team, the American basketball team, that always created a huge frenzy in the village. Everyone was quite starstruck to see them. But the one that stays in my mind was actually in London. I'm getting a bit casual now, used to the village and walking along the path. And my greatest sporting hero walked past me. And I greeted him as if we were long lost buddies. I said, "How's it, Rog?" Mr. Roger Federer was just cruising past us. And obviously he's got South African roots, and he stopped to chat to a few of us. And he actually spoke of getting his twins South African passports. Not sure why, but very proud that he was interested in the Green Mamba. But he stopped to chat to us. And that was a moment for me where I was just blown away.
Oh, look, Roger does speak of it very fondly when I chat to him. The day I met Kate Woods.
Of course.
It is such a great coming together of athletes from all these different spaces, and it gives you these incredible memories. It allows you to interact with other athletes. And you talk about Roger Federer as your greatest sporting hero. I would think that is a very small slip, and you meant to say your second greatest sporting hero, because I'm sure number one on that list is a water polo player who is sculpted from marble, looks like he's just escaped from the set of an updated Baywatch, and is the other half of this Woods empire. Tell me about meeting a water polo star called Duncan and discovering there was something more to him than just the muscles and the water polo ability.
We were at Stellenbosch University, and actually Dunks was swimming. He was doing his water polo training in the pool, and I was just arriving for a little dip. And I remember him stopping on the side of the lane where I was walking past. He lifted his goggles and he said, "How's it, Kate?" And he said, "How's the hockey going?" So I knew straight away that he had done his homework.
He knew exactly who you were.
And that was a moment. He invited me then to the intervarsity match, which was just 2 nights later, which was UCT against Marty's. And I had a prior engagement on, so I only arrived quite late into the evening.
Define prior engagement.
I'm going to just park that one for now. And I arrived at the water polo shed. This little wooden hut that the polo players were so proud of. It was across the way from the hockey club. I used to get bounced at the door because I was a hockey player, but this time I was there to see Duncan Woods, and so I was allowed in. Although he had some bodyguards around him. And I actually arrived to see none other than Dunks on one knee doing a funnel. It was love at first sight.
So began a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, no, honestly, he is my number one. You're right. And it's been a very, very long time together, more than half my life. And what is amazing is that we share this passion for sport. And I really take my hat off to him. He inspires me daily because he has never stopped giving back to his sport. And it's been even a tougher journey, I think, for him in the water polo world. And yet nothing stops him still today giving back in every single way he possibly can. So truly inspiring. But I think it's also we've made a good team. Just understanding how important sport is in our lives, keeping it a part of our lives, even now, later on, and for our kids. And he's been to every Olympics with me. Unfortunately, he would have been to more himself playing if he was afforded the opportunity, but at least he was there with me supporting in each of mine.
I suspect the shared Cinderella nature of your two sports is a space that's brought you even closer together, because you've had triumphs, both of you, as captains and representing your country in your two sports, but you also know what each other have gone through with sport that's often been on the back foot.
Yeah, for sure. Sparring partner or accountability partner, but also just, keeping ourselves, committed, motivated when times get tough, but also those moments, he's the first person I want to celebrate with at those competitions and with those wins. It's really, really special to have someone who's lived it all with you, right there to experience it with you. I remember my 50th cap dunks, arriving with 150 roses. It's small moments like that, but that certainly stay in the heart forever.
He doesn't make life easy for the rest of us husbands, does he? If you're listening to this, you cannot see Kate is glowing at the moment and got a light shade of crimson, which I absolutely love. And it is so special to see. And it also dispels a theory, which I did my best to try and promote many times in earlier years, that you and Duncan were actually a SASCOG project to breed world-class athletes by taking two of the greatest together and seeing what we could come up with. But that actually is what's happened, because already the Little Woodses are showing great potential.
You're hilarious, Dan. But yes, we have 3 boys. We bred nicely, 3 boys. They need to choose exactly their path ahead. We are parents that I'm quite proud to say are not pushy parents on the sidelines. We are trying to remove every ounce of pressure off their shoulders so that they can just play whatever sport they want to play and just play for the pure enjoyment. We have twins and they're very different, and the one is very competitive and the other one is absolutely the opposite, and it is the biggest joy to see him out on the field. It just really shows what sports is about. It's about meeting other people, it's about the camaraderie, it's about the wins and the losses, and just the spirit that he portrays on the field is something very special.
So one of them takes after Duncan and the other's super competitive.
Thank you for putting it like that. No, they all enjoy lots of sports. I think hockey has captured at least 2 of their hearts out of the 3. They're doing brilliantly, and we're so proud of them.
Do they have a sense of just how good, just how cool, just how important mum and dad are?
No, not at all. It's not the case, and we get humbled daily in the garden where they think they can just skin us and cook around us.
It's been part of the transition. I mean, the motherhood, the working world. Often those things happen post career. I think particularly because hockey is what it is. Those collided, and very happily so. But aside from becoming a mum and starting a family, there's also been this Adidas business. And if I think of Adidas in South Africa, you are the first person who comes to mind, because you represented the brand so proudly and so successfully for so many years. But then moving into a space that I'm familiar with, this is probably the low point of Adidas South Africa, but this marks 22 years that I've had a relationship with the 3-striped brand, and you've somehow survived despite that. But it's always one where there's never been, I think, any question of what you would do. I was going to say when you stop playing hockey, but that's not going to happen for another 20 years. But when you stop playing full-time and you started moving into the working world, I think there was 3-striped DNA in that blood from the start.
I often joke that 3 stripes run through my veins. Honestly, it's a love affair that started actually back in 2004, where Adrian D'Souza actually approached me at the Olympic Games.
He signed me for Adidas. I'm his local
He knows
injurious
talent
hype
when he sees it. Thanks for setting the bar so high. So he approached to sponsor me in 2004. And so the relationship began as a sponsored athlete. It then transitioned. I was speaking at a conference with Gav Cowley and a whole lot of others you would know. And I was approached afterwards to say, come and work for us. I said, I'd love to, but we're a year out before Beijing, and we're traveling every month, and there's a huge amount of training. So there's no ways I could begin a corporate job. And they said, no, we're going to help support your sports career and help you begin your professional one at the same time. So Adidas really took a chance on me. And they allowed me to take as much leave as I needed for my sport, as well as beginning and learning the ropes inside the office. So that was incredible. I do think they thought I'd retire after Beijing. And when I went back for more, I had to take my own leave, and I remember submitting a deadline from the Athletes Village in London the night before, facing USA the next day. So it's certainly been a lot of hard work from my side, but I will forever be grateful for the chance they've given me. And so it's been nearly 17 years, Dan, that I've been working for Adidas, and it's taken my family and I around the world. It's taught me a million things. I've had the privilege of attending so many incredible sporting events and meeting athletes that inspire me. Just working in an industry where, sport is our business. We are sport and the culture born from it. And we also believe that sport has the power to change lives. So to call this work is honestly a privilege.
I love that you do paraphrase Madiba there, because that great glorious line from the opening awards of sport changing the world is still so important and has never been more so. And I think you have that unique ability in a corporate but also sporting space. Not unique, because there are many athletes who've moved into sports brands, but I think you particularly in South Africa, from a sport that's faced so many challenges itself, to have that real feel for how often something quite small can have such a ripple effect and make such change that is, especially in South Africa, so needed.
Absolutely. And I try and bring, all of those lessons and learnings into the workplace. And we're very, very passionate about putting our money where our mouth is. And it's not just about, choosing athletes that are going to give us the biggest exposure and partnering with the best that is going to give us. It's about what we can do for others. And so is it just as important to spotlight those stories that maybe some don't even know about, or to provide support in whichever way we can to help someone along their journey. Sia, the relationship we have with Sia Kolisi is a special one, because it's not just from 2019 that we formed a relationship. The first pair of rugby boots he ever put on was Adidas. And we infiltrated his life then, and we captured his heart, and we've supported him through everything. And so this is when you really start to see a relationship flourish. And where the magic starts to happen is when you meet them when they need you most, and that there's loyalty to stay and be alongside them in their sporting journeys forever. So yeah, we've got a long way to go, but I'm very proud of the portfolio that we have. And we try to make sure that we can make a difference in all sporting codes, in every athlete, whether at the top or just starting. And with each of our partners, our teams or our athletes, we always try to also support them on their purpose journey and with their foundations, to make sure that Adidas can touch many, many, many people around South Africa, provide more access to sport, and safety and equality within it.
Long may that continue, and continue not just within South Africa, because every second post I see, and there are not many of them, but when you do have time to pop them up, you're in all sorts of different places, and particularly Nigeria. And that seems to be like a really exciting part of your story, and somewhere I expect you, probably without Adidas, might not really have got to know very well.
Well, my first entry to Nigeria was the 2003 All Africa Games. To qualify for my first Olympics was actually in Abuja, Nigeria. But today I visit in a professional capacity, and it's truly incredible to see the footprint that we are creating on the African continent. Mm-hmm. So yes, within my portfolio, it's not just South Africa. We have 19 to 20 other countries that we're currently doing business in. So sub-Saharan Africa, if you want to call it that. And it's also not just about distributing and clearing product through Africa. It's actually about creating the brand for the sustainable future, and partnering with athletes and teams, opening stores, creating and expanding the formal trade. It's amazing to see what we can do there. And, we speak about this African influence on the world, and it's true. It's absolutely happening in sport, in music, in arts, in culture, in business. African talent is something to be so proud of, and it's really it's incredible to see what we're doing there, and we're not stopping here.
Well, your commitment to seeing the rest of Africa is amazing. I think just this year already, you've been to Mauritius 8 times, Seychelles 12. It really is a focus you have.
I wish.
Very admiring of the intersection beyond sport with so many of these other spaces. It's become intrinsic to Adidas. I'm still working on the three-striped wine space, but if I look at the art, if I look at the music, there's a real edge where not something you can ever engineer. You can nudge it in that direction, but there has to be an element of the organic. And I think that must give you a great deal of pride when you see how the brand stretches beyond where it might once have been as just a pair of trainers, and there is now such a community lifestyle space to it.
Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we are sport and the culture born from it. And that takes us into a whole nother world. And we've had our ups and downs along the way. When the heat around your product comes off the boil, it's hard. But I think we've done an amazing job over the last few years to really build the brand to a space where we are starting to set those trends, that we are starting to pioneer. And it's about investing in the right innovation and technology, but it's also really just about meeting our consumers where they are and also opening our brand into their hands and letting them start to co-create with us. And really the magic happens where sport and style come together. So you will see, I don't know if you've seen already, but you will certainly see in the future a lot more trefoils on the football pitch, and then a lot more of the Adidas performance logo on the streets. Just at Wimbledon now, we played with our Originals logo on the court. And so we're really trying to smash all rules and really remove the boundaries that exist and allow people to just create and express themselves as they wish today, making sport more accessible, but also bringing that sharp point and that edge to both sport and style.
If this comes across as a shameless Adidas adoration episode, then you're 100% right. It is the brand I've had the longest relationship with, and I'm much devoted to it. My kids know this as well. They're not allowed anything other than, and they're quite happy with that, as they should be.
I love you even more, Dan.
But of course, I'm also a massive Kate Woods fan, and that brings me back to the hockey and brings me back to the ups and downs you mentioned now from a business perspective. But if we go back to the hockey career, just in closing, those ups and downs, you'll know better than most that the ups are the ones we celebrate, but the downs are the ones once we get over them that we really do learn those lessons from. So before the note of triumph, what was the moment where this was the absolute rock bottom, where you just felt whether, Kate as a hockey player or hockey itself, or the world is just completely black and white today and lots of shades of grey, and I just can't really find much to be happy about?
Well, I'm going to use one match as an example. The 2004 Olympics in Athens. We set our hearts on winning our first game. We had decided that this game would set us up for the tournament, that we would then go on to medal at the Olympic Games. We were playing against the Netherlands. The Dutch are number 1 in the world, and we faced them at 8:30 on day 1 of the Olympic Games. And we were absolutely ludicrous to go into that game thinking that we could beat the Dutch. And I think, again, it's taught me so many lessons in how to set realistic goals, how to prepare for them, and to control the controllables. Because honestly, we prepared for 6 months for this one match. We'd wake up at the time we'd need to, we'd eat early, we'd play against boys in Joburg. So the pace was hard and high and fast. And for 6 months, we absolutely focused relentlessly around this moment. And we got absolutely thrashed. We lost 6-0 to the Dutch in that opening match. And in that moment, we thought that our entire tournament had just unraveled in front of us. I've never felt so low. I've never felt like I've been, crushed and just sent back down to earth with a thud like that. And yet, we should never have gone in with that expectation. We should have gone in there to focus on what we needed to build and work on to set us up to beat the teams that were ranked in and around us. And so that was really a huge lesson. But it was also a big mountain to climb when you are in tournament and you have to make a recovery and a shift, and you've focused for 6 months around this moment and you've lost horribly. And of course, the armchair critics back home were quite loud, and we had to really come together as a team and reset, recalibrate what we were there to do. And Dan, a couple of games later, we went on to beat Germany 3-0. They won the gold medal. We came 10th. But in this moment, we proved to ourselves what is possible by approaching it in the right way, by focusing on what we could do, by taking our chances and moments and, defending first. And there were lots of lessons learned, but this is one that in the space of a week, I've never had such a low and such a high in one tournament. And honestly, those roller coasters have carried through in many tournaments. I remember at the World Cup in Madrid 2006, I even remember in Beijing 2008, coming so excruciatingly close to a win. When you just are losing by one goal, that is the difference between a top 6 or a bottom 6. There's so much heartbreak in all of these games, and there's such small margins. So I could name a million of these examples, but yeah, certainly there exist, and there's lessons learned in every win and in every loss.
My feel has always been that, if you don't have those low points, you just can't appreciate the important ones and the big ones. And, whether it was your win over Germany or our famous mighty Dodos win over Fishhook in that great season of 2007. Whatever sport you play, it gives you those ups and it gives you those downs. And that's why we play and that's why we love it.
Of course.
And that's really part of who we are, and it always will be. Even if one of us is no longer really playing hockey and the other's got another 35 years until she finally decides it's time to slow down.
I think we're nearly there. But honestly, to touch on last year, I never in my wildest dreams thought at the tender age of 43, I'd be out there competing for my country again, donning the green and gold on home soil with the family and the crowds. And of course, this was at Masters level. I played in the 35, so actually with the youngsters last year. But I played a season with the firsts at the club, so a Premier League season. We went on to win the league. I don't know how miraculously I won player of the tournament. And then I played in the World Cup, and then we lifted that trophy at the World Cup. We played Holland, we played Netherlands in the final, so we had our comeback.
You got your revenge. Were any of the same players?
No. On our side, yes. On their side, no. I was so lucky that I was playing with, I think 5 or 6 of us had spent a large portion of our careers at a national level playing together. And they definitely had retired more recently than I had. So I knew that they've got all the legs in the world and I could just pass them the ball and they'd absolutely sprint past every defender. But it was such a highlight just to feel a little bit competitive again. And I've waited my whole life for a gold medal. And this time round, World Masters decided to be sustainable and gave us a piece of wood.
Well, I think you'll just have to keep going then until that gold one does arrive.
Absolutely. No, it's all fun. It's all fun and in the spirit of hockey at the moment. But I'm lucky to still be running around out there.
Oh, look, you've left us with so many great memories from on the field, and I think now what you're doing is so exciting, and it's only going to get more so. We'll be watching out for the name Woods as the next generation comes through, and the young stars. But for now, thank you. It was a pleasure catching up with you. A wonderful career on the field, and many wonderful memories you've given us. Many more than I think you might always appreciate because we were always watching and cheering on. And now a really cool time to be with my favourite brand, and I think it's only onwards and upwards from here.
You're so kind. Thank you. The support means a great deal, and I'm very, very humble stepping into big shoes. To be the GM of Adidas is obviously quite daunting for me right now, but the greatest honor, and I will serve the brand and my team at work as best I can. It's like I said, daunting. It's tough. I can't wait to learn and grow some more in this next chapter ahead. But Dan, we will always stay close. The brand will always be your favorite brand, but you're our favorite athlete.
There we go. And please note the word athlete used very specifically by someone who's been to 3 Olympics. The only other lesson to take out from today is when you sign a new contract with a brand, read it carefully because you might discover on page 81 in font 2, you will have to have the new GM on your podcast at a time of her choosing. Okay, Words, thank you so much. We're delighted to have you on the show, and best of luck as this wonderful journey of yours continues.
Thanks, Dan. All the best.
So there we go. A 3-time Olympian, 181 caps for South Africa, now a Masters champion as well, and player of the tournament, despite being 20-odd years older than everyone else in the team. And our general manager of Adidas, my very, very special guest on the show this week, the great Kate Woods.
You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.